Welcome to Steam First. My name is Dylan, and I am here today with the developer of Out of the Park 16.
Hey.
This is Brad. Brad's pretty cool. Alright, so I have a couple questions for you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I'm gonna kick it up. I'm gonna actually tee off. No, wrong sport. Tee off. What? God.
First pitch.
First pitch. There's no really nice word for it, is there?
No.
They need to fix
Opening
that.
pitch, yeah. I don't know. First pitch.
Anyway, first pitch question. How long did it actually take you to develop the game?
Well, I'm the PR marketing guy. I'm not the main developer. Marcus Heinzen, who lives in Germany, has lived there his whole life, is actually the creator of Out of the Park Baseball. We added a programmer for this version, a guy named Matt Arnold, who lives in Toronto, and then Marcus works with Andreas, who lives in Germany as well, on the game. But as far as, I'm familiar with pretty much with the development cycle and the process, and they pretty much they'll get going. We put out updates to the game all throughout the baseball season, late summer, and usually in the fall, Marcus will start kind of hammering out his plans for the next version of the game, the features he wants to see. We have a really robust beta team, a whole bunch of people who are really always excited to see what's next in the game, and they always download betas and kind of beat them up a bit and see what works and what doesn't and things like that. So he'll get going with a features list and kind of whittle that down over over a few weeks, and then usually by the time the World Series is done, he starts they start working in earnest on the next version of the game, doing the programming and creating what they call builds of the software to kind of play around with and make sure things are working properly. So that goes on up through January, usually February sometime is when we kind of hit the formal beta process. As far as the beta testers checking out the game and seeing what's working, what's not working, and all that stuff, and then it's usually ready to go in March. So, all told, it's probably a good 6-month process, I guess, for each version, to kind of develop it.
Awesome. That actually sounds really cool. I actually do plan on going to college for hopefully game development and graphical arts. So I always like how the system works. It's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah. Well, it just kind of comes down to sort of doing the coding and kind of testing how things work and kind of like I said, putting together builds and putting them out there and people run them and kind of see how everything's fitting together.
Alright, so there's actually a second part to this question. When did your company, group of friends, your squad, when did you guys start making the series?
Marcus made the first version of the game actually in 1999, so that's when version 1 came out. Growing up in Germany, obviously did not have a lot of exposure to baseball. There actually is a small pro baseball league in Germany. There's a little bit of that in that country, but obviously that's not a big sport. And in the mid-90s, he got interested in baseball. He had a friend who went over to the U.S. and came back with a bat and a glove, and they started hitting a ball around. And Marcus actually got involved in playing a little bit of organized baseball there. He was a pitcher, and he wasn't too bad, but eventually he kind of turned to programming, and he didn't really, he wanted to make a baseball game. He didn't see any games out there that management style games that did what this game does, that he was really happy with, so he decided to make his own, and so he put the first version out in 1999.
Wow, that makes me feel old. I was born in 1999.
yeah, so the game is as old as you are.
Yeah, that makes me feel old. Oh man. Oh, okay. So another question: how many people are on your guys' team for making these games?
Well, it's pretty much it's Marcus, Matt, and Andreas working on the programming. A guy named Yorin who came in last year. He's worked on a lot of the 3D stuff, and he does some work on the game too, as well as some work on some other things. And Daniela is our awesome graphic designer, and she handles all that stuff, all the user interface, look and feel kind of stuff, icons, graphics. So forth. Jeff Riddles is our kind of our overall sort of project manager for the game. He kind of herds the cats and keeps the beta team together and works on the documentation and things like that. And then we've got a rosters team. I don't know how many people that is. Guys, Lucas and Howard kind of run the rosters team, and those are the guys who put together all the stats and make sure the rosters are correct all the way down to the minor leagues, and as well as for leagues in Japan and Korea and so forth. And they dig up a ton of stats. And they're actually working on a really cool project for the next version of the game. They're working on having historical minor leagues in the game, which is going to be pretty cool. It's still in the early stages, and I'm hoping it kind of all comes together, but that'll be pretty neat. And then we've got our great beta testers. However many of those are, I admit I'm not sure, but so that's it's a small core group, but there are a lot of people out there who kind of help kind of kick the tires and make sure the game is working.
That sounds like probably a huge family crammed into a really tiny house.
Yeah.
That's kind of what comes to my mind.
Right.
All right. So, what about you? Are you a big baseball guy yourself?
Yeah, I've been a baseball fan since I was a kid. I grew up back east. I live in California now, but I grew up in New Jersey. I've been a Phillies fan since I was a kid. Went to the World Series in 1983, so used to hang out at the old Veterans Stadium after games in the early 80s and get autographs after games and that kind of thing. So yeah, I've always been a baseball fan.
Who's your favorite player?
Favorite player of all time. I always loved Pete Rose. I know he's got his personal issues, but my dad and I always liked seeing Pete Rose. We always liked to sit. He played a lot of first base for the Phillies back then, and we always liked to sit along the first base side if we could. He was always fun to watch on the field. I'd say in more recent years, my favorite player for a while there was Roy Halladay. I know he's done now in baseball, but when he was pitching for the Phillies, I always liked him. He was kind of a no nonsense guy, and really just kind of always bore down and just kind of worked his way through every game. Even if he ran into trouble, he just kind of shrugged it off.
Awesome. I'm more of a soccer kind of guy. I played soccer since I was probably about 3, so yeah. But we don't get many soccer games, sadly,
Right.
other than FIFA.
Yeah, and Football Manager, that's on Steam.
I've played many simulators throughout my time of gaming, and I have to say yours is probably the most in-depth and specific simulator that I've actually ever played. Like
Yeah,
the level of detail you guys put in is amazing.
yeah. We hear that a lot. Yeah, it does. I mean, I think they do a great job of kind of simulating so many aspects of the sport, and especially with all the historical stuff that's in there. You can go back to 1871 and play forward with your history. So yeah, there's a lot in there.
So that kind of segues us into the next question. What gave you guys the idea to make the game?
Well, like I said, Marcus had become a baseball fan, and it's kind of funny. Management games are not as popular in the U.S. as they are in Europe. I mean, in Europe, management games, whether it's a sports simulation or just something where you're managing an airport or company or whatever, there's a lot more interest in Europe for whatever reason. So Marcus had a lot of experience just playing those kinds of games, and he wasn't really too interested in the whole aspect of sports games, and he didn't want to create something like that. So, he had seen some of the soccer games that are out there. Football Manager predated Out of the Park, and he really liked that, and he wanted to kind of create the Football Manager of baseball games. I mean, that was really his inspiration, and he knows the people at Sports Interactive pretty well. So that was kind of what his inspiration was to kind of create kind of this in-depth simulator for baseball.
So why make a game like mainly focused on the management aspect?
Well, I think Marcus felt that there wasn't really anything. I mean, there have been, of course, other baseball sims out there at the time, and there still are. But he was really interested in that kind of thing. I mean, he's got a head for numbers and kind of an interest in artificial intelligence and that kind of thing. So it really interested him to sort of create an experience, something that kind of mimics, what happens in real life. I mean, when you start a new game in Out of the Park Baseball, you're kind of just setting a new whole alternate universe in motion. No matter, even if you're playing 2015 season, it could turn out very differently from reality, based on all kinds of things. And I think that's what really interests him, is how all these things kind of intersect, how the player histories and their ratings and how they're projected to perform in the future, and then new players coming in and the possibility of players coming in from other countries and how that can change things. I mean, it's a really and players have personality, so some players may be greedier than others. Some may be very hard to sign as free agents unless you're willing to kind of give up the farm, and others are more easygoing. So I think he's really interested in just how all this kind of stuff meshes together and kind of creates this like kind of world, that you kind of inhabit, and you kind of watch things unfold and participate in.
Oh, so it really is really different from a lot of the games that I've played, and I've played everything from Cook Serve Delish. This was one of the recent reviews I did, and that was a game about hitting random keys on your keyboard to make a sandwich. And I've played things from that to massive online games. Like I played a little bit of League, played World of Warcraft, played ESO. I really did enjoy the Skyrim series, but I've also played a lot of simulators. Euro Truck Simulator is probably one of my favorites. But I would probably say, out of the basis of what a simulator is supposed to be, it's supposed to simulate the game, I would say that yours is probably the top on hitting the head, because you really did put a lot of effort and detail into every single thing and all the choices you can make and everything you can control. And I think that's what a lot of developers are kind of scared of, is that they don't really want to put in the time and work to think about every single decision and what could impact what. But I think you guys went above and beyond what a lot of other developers are willing to go and do.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that always interests Marcus. I've learned just working for the company, I've learned some stuff about kind of how the sport of baseball works. I mean, I didn't always pay as much attention to things like minor league options and even the Rule 5 draft, which happens, in the winter. Every so often a guy gets grabbed in the Rule 5 draft who turns out to work out pretty well for a team. But all those little kind of nooks and crannies and little details, and with a game like this, there's always that question of, well, how deep do you want to go down a certain rabbit hole, or how much do you want to kind of abstract something as far as kind of representing it in the game. That's always kind of interesting to me, and it's interesting to him to kind of see, like running the front office. I mean, you can do things like set ticket prices and stuff, but we're probably not going to have you set like beer prices or specific concession prices, or you drill down too far and you kind of lose people. But it's kind of fun to be able to kind of change your ticket prices and see how it affects attendance and how fan loyalty. I mean, there's a sort of a numerical representation of fan loyalty, and if you let a really popular player leave in free agency, you'll get a message telling you how mad the fans are at you and that kind of thing. So yeah, all that stuff is kind of adds up to that kind of unique experience.
Yeah, actually, an interesting side story for a sec. Last year for high school, I was in a digital media arts class, and I got picked to be part of BPA, which is the Business Professionals of America, and our project was to build a virtual baseball stadium from the ground up. So it was actually really interesting because we had to put in all the stalls and all the concessions, and what we ended up doing was, if you've ever seen Anaheim, California,
Yeah.
we kind of based it on you know, the stadium here in Cincinnati, and then I think it was one of the bigger stadiums in New York, and then we based it upon one of the really older California stadiums. But what we ended up doing was making this kind of simulated perfect baseball stadium, which it kind of reminded me of this game, because you have to think about every single thing that most people don't really think about, like all the players and all the names and their age, their physical activity, and just it was kind of ridiculous how much, you know, detail goes into games like this.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, you kind of had a sense of that then with kind of building a stadium and looking at all those little details. And you know, for people out there who might think, oh, geez, I don't know if I want to deal with that much. I mean, you can turn certain tasks over to the AI. You have an assistant general manager who will certainly do things for you if you don't want to do everything. But yeah, I mean, the game really kind of drills down. I mean, we've got the full rosters for all the minor league teams down through rookie ball, and so you know, you draft new batch of prospects every June, and you know, put them in your farm system. You have to sign them, and not all of them are easy to sign, and some guys actually kind of may blow you off. But the ones you sign go into your farm system. You can kind of see them, you know, kind of move up the ladder and see how many of them work out. You know, just like in real life.
If you could give the people playing the game one tip on how to be the best at this game, what would you say?
I would say really pay attention to your player contracts, and don't be afraid to dump salary in a trade. You know, you see that happen in real life, and I would say don't be afraid to do it in the game. And I would say don't be afraid to get rid of guys before they hit their mid to late 30s. And you know, a lot of times players drop off at that point, and it's not a bad thing to do that. Even if your fans get angry at you, they could certainly just fall off the table, and it's better to let them go than, you know, hang on to a player just because for sentimental reasons. I was actually playing an historical league once with the Phillies, and I let Steve Carlton go. That was, I don't know, in the mid '80s, whenever it was, and the fans were furious with me. But you know, he went on. I think he actually signed with the Reds. I don't remember. As a free agent, but his numbers were pretty bad. You know, he was getting into his late 30s, and he just kind of went into decline. So don't be afraid to let players walk away if it makes sense.
So do you plan on continuing the series after this one?
Yeah, there have been 16 versions. I'm sure Marcus will happily do another 16 versions, 30 versions, 40 versions. I don't know. Someday we may be talking about Out of the Park 62. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, this game. It's an annual release. You know, I know sometimes people say, geez, you know, what more could you put in the game? But there's always more. I mean, there are always things we can revamp. I know they're talking right now about revamping scouting in the game and trying to make that a little more interesting. There's actually a Red scout for the Boston Red Sox, so I interviewed for an article for our blog, and he had some ideas. He's actually talking to some people on our beta team, as well as one of our programmers about some ideas he has for kind of representing scouting reports in the game. So that's something people can expect to hopefully see some changes. I'm not going to commit to anything right now because I don't know how it'll work out over the next few months. But So yeah, it's just there's always more to change and do and revamp and more things you can add and it's yeah. I mean, I it's going to keep going and going.
Wow. The sheer size of the game is kind of like hitting me right now.
Yeah, it's a big game. I mean, especially since we've added, last year we added those leagues in Japan, Korea, Taiwan, etc. We added Australia this year, and yeah, I mean, when you have all those, you don't have to activate all of them, but we have them all activated in part of your league. It does become a really big, world, and those players can move around, and you can see, guys come over here from other countries, or players can leave the U.S. and go play elsewhere, just like in real life. So yeah, it's there's a lot to it.
Alrighty, so we're gonna wrap this up, and I'll send you on your way so you can escape. So the last question I have for you is, if you could give your fans one message to either thank them or ask them a question or anything, what would it be?
Message, yeah. I mean, we're just very grateful to everybody who buys the game and sticks with us year after year. We've got people who've been playing the game since the very early days. We've got people who've only discovered it in the last couple of years and continue to enjoy it. I'm sure I always love to say there are people out there who want to play our game. They just don't know it yet. They just have to discover it. So and I guess I'd say if you're out there and you enjoy our game and you have a lot of fun with it, I hope you'll spread the word and let your friends and family know about it, and we can grow our customer base and hopefully be able to do lots more cool things with the game.
Sweet. Alright, so my name has been Dylan, and this has been Brad.
Thanks.
And I would like to thank you for taking the 25 odd minutes to stick around with me and listen to my boring questions.
No, I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me on. I'm happy to come on anytime and talk about our games.
And if you guys made it to the end of this video, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I would really, really suggest that you go look at the review that I'm going to be posting probably before or very soon after this goes up. So I would like to thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time.